So much of my coverage about Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League has kind of been hectic. A few weeks ago, I had a position where I was talking a lot about the downsides of making a game like this and how I thought players are going to respond. Some of you need to go back to those videos. Maybe you're probably going to laugh at how accurate they were. And I think I was making it from the perspective of having seen how gamers reacted to games like Marvel's Avengers, Gotham Knights, and so on and so forth, and seeing the way people misconstrued everything. And then as we started to see this game show up, I started to look at the business perspective, the publisher, the developer perspective, and trying to provide a broad view. A lot of people misconstrued this and kind of are maybe touting that I'm supporting or trying to, raise this game up to some standard and let people buy it or whatever. Folks, I don't care if anybody buys the game or not. In fact, I'm an aficionado of, single player superhero games. I like them. I don't know anything about the live service games. I played Marvel's Avengers. I thought it was going to be a good game. I bought 2 copies and I never beat the game. The game just disappointed me. But I just kind of walked away knowing that, live service superhero games, they really have to maybe somehow pull some kind of magic trick to, wow me. So I'm going into Suicide Squad like everybody else, like whatever. We'll see if this is good or we'll see if it doesn't turn out to be good. But at the end of the day, I think continually, focusing on Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League and its divisive nature is going to, in a sense, let us miss out on some really good things that are going on. You see, I can understand that many people are not necessarily down with the fact that, Warner Brothers is making Rocksteady make a superhero game, but it's not the end of the world because this is a strategy for them to churn out and make more money. They also have a game that I want us to actually pay a little bit of attention to that's being made by Monolith, and that's the Wonder Woman game. I want us to talk a little bit about the upsides of the fact that Monolith is making this game, the high likelihood that it's a single player game that's not going to, in a sense, bring in all of these crazy practices, but will give the traditional superhero single player experience, and the fact that Monolith actually has way more experience than we would think because, their library in terms of the much more modern gaming sense is not as big as many other studios, but it doesn't mean that they don't have the juice that it takes to actually provide a solid experience. You see, here's the thing. Businesses are very interesting entities. They are soulless entities that are, run by people. They have a fiduciary duty. So when you look at a business, you can't look at a business as the same way you're going to look at, a person. A person is very different from that entity. So when I look at a company like Warner Brothers and I see them make a game like, Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, I laugh and I'm like, man, these guys are just trying to double dip, which is what their competitors are doing. But at the same time, they're not 100% crazy. Yes, they make some crazy decisions, but at least they're trying to play both sides of the equation. Some people are so invested in Rocksteady. They just look and say, Rocksteady must be the studio that makes this because they make the Arkham games. They're my favorite studio, blah, blah, blah. I get it. Rocksteady is my favorite studio. But man, if you do not know about Monolith, let me tell you about this studio that has veteran status, that was formed by industry veterans, some of the hardcore game developers that literally built games, pencil and paper, all the way through 8-bit and more, and were able to deliver them. They had enough talent, enough technological savviness to be able to get their games out. Have you played Middle-earth Shadow of Mordor? Have you played Middle-earth Shadow of War? If you haven't played those games, I recommend that you actually do. These games actually have some really solid mechanics and do play very well in their story and in the worlds that they built, that if you actually play the game and know what they're about, you won't be able to help yourself but be excited about the Wonder Woman game. In fact, you might wonder why I'm so nonchalant about this whole Suicide Squad thing or whatever. It's simply because I know that these guys are going to drop a game that's going to make us forget about Suicide Squad. It's the truth. I mean, yeah, sure. If Suicide Squad was not a live service game and it played, in a different sense, maybe it'll be a huge contender. But this Wonder Woman game is definitely here to actually get the job done and actually scratch that itch for the single player, aficionados, the single player superhero aficionados. And I think this is something that we have to pay very close attention to. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit more about this, because you start to kind of zoom in, and I'm sure that you cannot help but recognize what it is that I'm seeing that has made me kind of go, have a much more, chill outlook in terms of the other games that are out there. So what's up with Monolith? Monolith has been doing this stuff for a long time. Many people may or may not know. In fact, they did it for so long. One of their, vice presidents or so, I think maybe a president of the studio, got poached by EA to go work for them. I don't know if they got poached or if they moved, but they seemed like they were pretty close within the studio and so on and so forth. And maybe EA looked at them and said, hey, yo, you have experience in dropping some really good games. You have technologically savvy ideas, and you've been a solid leader. So they took them, which speaks volumes, of the studio. For EA and one of their studios to come for one of your guys and probably open a checkbook, it means that guy of yours must have the knowledge. Now, it's not just him, but there are many within the studio as well that have been veterans as well that worked alongside him. I can't remember the names, by the way. I've just been following and watching their videos. I didn't pay attention to names. And they also have as much experience as they need to deliver this game. And I think one thing a lot of people are not necessarily paying attention to is the Shadow of War, Shadow of Mordor games. They came out so far back in a sense that, the studio has been mainly silent and we don't really know what's been going on. I guess maybe the leadership within their publisher has not necessarily been able to tap or greenlight a project that they've been working on. So with the Wonder Woman game that they're making, there's the best of both worlds that many of us are probably asking for. Best of both worlds number one is Wonder Woman is a character that is almost as, in a sense, similar to Superman as can possibly be within the DC universe, or I would say within the Justice League. Within the DC universe, there are many much more closer and much more similar characters. Let's just say within the Justice League, she has the name recognition because before you make a video game, you got to have marketing that's, solid for you before you dump millions of dollars in developing the video game. So this is the business side, folks, because I know some of you may say, well, I don't really want a Wonder Woman game. I want a Superman game. Well, I don't know why I don't want to make a Superman game, but hey, Wonder Woman is probably the next best thing. Number two is the fact that the game that she's going to probably be in is more than likely going to have Superman-esque style, adaptations or implementations in terms of mechanics and so on and so forth. So these are some of the things that kind of make things happen. And if you might be wondering, well, how is a game like that going to play? Is it going to be something where we can actually enjoy it? Are they going to be able to build an open world? Is it going to be one of these things where we're dealing with these open world issues here and there? I would say I don't necessarily know. I can't see the future, but I can look at what body of work they have. And looking at their Middle-earth games, I think they did a very good job with those games, especially in the fact that they have the technology to be able to render the world. And that technology has actually been somewhat showcased in the past. Now, some of you may or may not know, Linus Tech did some kind of I don't know what it is, like a showcase that Microsoft sponsored a while ago, where he went into their studio in Seattle and he was kind of looking at some of their computer equipment, some of their technology. He even went into their server room and started talking about how much, data they store back there. He was geeking out. And he did showcase a side of their engine where he talked about how their engine was able to render at the time. This is the days of the Xbox One X and, all of these other consoles that Xbox was bringing before the series versions, that they were able to render their games in high, resolutions and even be able to kind of like provide some 4K and some cool resolution settings for gamers to leverage the power of the Xbox console at that time. Now, what's even crazier is one of their Middle-earth games, I can't remember exactly the one it is capable of actually running in 8K resolution. I've tested it before. With my 4090, I was like, just moving settings, and I realized that crap, you can actually run this game in 8K. They made a game back in the day that could scale so well, that had very good graphics, had really cool animations, and there are a bunch of brilliant people in that studio that can get the job done. I've also been following their games developer conferences from time to time. I go in there and I watch what they're capable of doing, and I can see that with a lot of confidence, this studio can get the job done. The only thing is, these folk were not the people who made the Arkham games. I think that's probably the only reason they don't have as much popularity as, say, Rocksteady does. Rocksteady does have the popularity for making the Arkham games and so on and so forth, but I can tell you for certain that the talent and the knowledge and the experience within Monolith is, in my opinion, just as solid as Rocksteady. In fact, I would almost dare to say that it's a little bit more than Rocksteady, but hey, that's all subjective because, their mechanics and stuff in terms of their combat has a little bit of similarity in a sense, but, it has its own distinctions as well. But this is something we have to pay very close attention to. Now, as you're zooming in, you're looking at technology, they got it. You're looking at experience, they got it. You're looking at portfolio, they have it too. They have actually more games in their portfolio than Rocksteady actually has. I know, isn't that crazy? If you do a little bit of digging, or maybe if you just go on their website, you're going to see that they actually do have a decent library of games. Now, sure, maybe a lot of these games, many people didn't play it at the time that they came out, but the experience is there. I would say the time in the trenches is already there and also established. I know you're looking at the library as I'm scrolling through and you're like, I don't know any of these games, but maybe some of you do, or maybe some of you don't. But it doesn't matter. It just means that their library is robust enough in a sense to be able to have established practices that might translate into a solid game when they eventually drop the Wonder Woman title. So these are things that I believe that we can look into. And as much as, Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League may be a little more rancid in a sense, I don't know how else to categorize that game, because every time I talk about that game, I can't talk to any direction without people on one side or the other yelling at me. The last time somebody called me a Spider-Man fanboy when I was saying that, Suicide Squad is going to probably, cause a lot of issues and many people are not going to like it. And then I move to the other side and say, well, this is why they're making Suicide Squad. They're just trying to farm dollars. I get called a shill. I mean, you can't win. So we might as well just go ahead and start to focus on the strong points and then just maybe remove your mind from these things that you feel are, issues. You see, here's the thing. If Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League makes money, at the end of the day, they're going to pour that money into projects that will probably benefit or at least appeal to you at the end of the day. I used to have this myopic view. I used to be in the same position. And sometimes I come out saying, we need to have a broader perspective. And I don't want to be a hypocrite. I used to be the kind of person that would, be reactionary in a sense. Like, what's the Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League game, man? What are they doing, man? Why does the game look like everyone is jumping around, man? Until I started to understand the way gaming economies flowed. Gaming economies flow very, interesting in a weird sense. When I started to do game development, it really opened my eyes to how beneficial live service games can be. Now, I will talk about it in this video, but this video is already spanned way too long. And so I'll leave that for a follow-up video, and maybe someone's going to yell at me, but hey, who the heck cares? But like I said, there's more to look forward to. If you're a single player aficionado in the superhero context, it's not over, okay? Relax. It's one game. There's another one coming out. Throw your support behind it. Talk about it. Let your friends know about it. And when it comes out, be sure to gift copies to people who, you think would probably benefit from it, because that's the way the superhero games thrive. Unless, of course, the game is trash, then, hey, I don't know what to tell you at that point. Talk to y'all soon. Peace out.